11 spine-chilling creepy tales discovered after midnight, sinister secrets revealed to haunt you. Delilah awoke with a start, her heart hammering against her chest, the remnants of a nightmare fading like a wisp of smoke. The clock's glow blinked 3 a.m., the witching hour. Shadows clung to the corners of her dimly lit room, stretching into grotesque shapes as she clutched her thin blanket tighter around her. She was no stranger to sleepless nights, each one spent wrestling with exhaustion while navigating 2 jobs and the chaos of motherhood. But lately, there had been something lurking beneath the surface in Maplewood, a tangible tension that draped over her peaceful suburb like a shroud. After yet another grueling late shift, fatigue clawed at her bones as she took her usual shortcut through the park. The moon barely illuminated her path, but her gaze was drawn to a flicker near the community board, a flickering light tantalizingly calling to her. When she approached, a chill skittered down her spine. The board was littered with colorful posters and cheerful events, but beneath those were cryptic entries, chilling accounts of disappearances that made her skin crawl. Families vanishing without a trace, neighbors who had once been friendly but now whispered behind closed doors. Was it just paranoia, or was there a sinister current flowing through her community? Her pulse quickened as she read the first eerie tale. Mr. Jenkins, her neighbor, who had always been so kind, too kind, had a name splashed across the board in grim tales that painted him in an unsettling light. A babysitter turned suspect? As she read on, her heart raced with horror as descriptions of his odd behavior unfolded. The doorbell ringing at odd hours, strange noises emanating from his basement, and the chilling detail that he had once offered to look after Ethan and Mia. Panic clamped down on her, squeezing out oxygen, as the final entry whispered of shadows that moved without their owners. The friendly facade of her neighborhood began to crumble. Delilah stumbled backward as a gust of wind whipped through the park, filling her mind with echoing doubts. Had she misjudged Mr. Jenkins? Had she misjudged them all? As she made her way home, the relief of being back faded rapidly under the weight of dread that carpentered her gut. Something was off, but the overwhelming fatigue kept her anchored, even as strange things began to unfold at home. Whispers kissed the edges of her ears when she laid down for the night. Quick flashes of movement darted in her peripheral vision, but when she turned to look, there was nothing. One morning, as sunlight hesitantly broke through the clouds, Delilah's heart dropped as she discovered her car, the tires slashed, leaking air like a slow breath of despair. She called the police, her voice shaking with urgency, but a board officer dismissed her concerns. Kids will be kids, he laughed, rolling his eyes. Each laugh echoed like a slap, leaving her feeling more isolated. It was almost as if the neighborhood itself was complicit in her descent into paranoia. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into restless nights as strange incidents burgeoned. One evening, she awoke to find both children huddled together, trembling from nightmares. The shadows felt heavier than before, pressing down with a suffocating weight. Was it just her imagination? Or were the tales of Maplewood's dark history the whispers of sinister traditions binding her to something larger than herself? Each moment spent in this neighborhood tightened the noose, urging her toward a confrontation with Mr. Jenkins. But as her courage built, she sensed an ill-willed presence lurking about, and the most terrifying thought crept in: what if the monsters were those she had trusted all along, hidden behind friendly smiles and neighborly gestures? As she braced herself to confront the very real danger, she felt a spine-chilling breath on her neck, and the question echoed louder than ever: who could she really trust? Delilah's breath caught as she turned slowly, the cold air swirling around her like a whispering ghost. There it was again, a rustle, a slither just beyond the reach of the streetlights. She shuffled back towards her home, legs trembling, an invisible weight pushing down on her chest. The front door creaked open, revealing her children, their wide eyes swirling with fear. "Mommy, we heard it again," Mia stammered, clinging to Ethan's arm, their nightgowns fluttering in the draft. Delilah felt a chill seep deeper into her bones as the shadows of the room seemed to deepen. Heard what, sweetheart? Mr. Jenkins. He was in the yard, Ethan's voice quavered, his small body shaking under the blanket of fear. Delilah's mind raced. Mr. Jenkins? Was he even home? Or was there something darker lurking beneath his seemingly polite demeanor? With a kiss to their foreheads, she assured them, "It's just the wind. You're safe with me." But as she settled them back to sleep, Delilah couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at her insides. Night after night the whispers grew louder, creeping into her dreams, twisting and curling within her mind. Muffled conversations, footsteps shuffling outside her window, and the haunting sound of children laughing only to vanish abruptly into silence. Delilah felt as if she were trapped in a never-ending nightmare. After gathering her courage, she decided to confront Mr. Jenkins. He was outside, tending to his garden as she approached, the dim light outlining his figure like something out of a horror film. He looked up, his smile ingrained too deeply on his face. "Delilah. What brings you here?" "I heard some things," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted to know if everything is all right." The question tasted bitter on her tongue. "Everything is just fine, dear," he replied, his eyes gleaming in the shadows. "Just keeping busy as usual." There was an odd, unsettling warmth to his tone that made her skin prickle. She forced a smile, wanting to believe him, yet every instinct screamed at her to run. "Thanks, Mr. Jenkins." She backed away slowly as he continued to rake his garden, yet something felt wrong. That night, just past midnight, the whispers surged back, louder this time. "Mia, Ethan," a voice called softly from the shadows. It was a voice she didn't recognize, sharp and insistent. Struggling to wake, Delilah rushed from her bedroom, panic flooding her veins. In her children's room, the sight nearly shattered her heart. The bedding was tossed as if something had pulled at the blankets, and neither of her kids were in their beds. A surge of adrenaline fueled her fear. "Mia! Ethan!" she shouted, racing down the dark hallway. A creak echoed from the living room. A dark shape loomed by the window, backlit by the moonlight. Trembling with dread but driven by panic, Delilah moved forward, her feet almost unwilling to drag her closer. "Mommy?" Mia's small voice broke through the tension as she peeked from behind the couch. "He said we could play." The dread twisted like a knife in her gut. "Who, sweetheart? Who said that?" Mr. Jenkins. Every hair on Delilah's body stood on end as she turned her gaze to the window where Mr. Jenkins stood, his smile wider than ever, peering into her house, eyes glinting with a primal hunger. Was he the monster hiding behind a neighbor's mask? Panic swelled within her as she tried to comprehend the fear knotting her throat, the encroaching darkness around her. Just then, something moved behind him, another shadow, tall and limber. It seemed to flicker between the world of light and dark, and Delilah's heart nearly stopped. What had she awakened in Maplewood? As the silhouette crept closer, her mind raced back to the stories she had read: families vanishing, shadows without owners. The tales were more than just stories, they were warnings. She had to act. "Run!" she screamed, clutching Mia and Ethan tightly. Desperately, she grasped the phone to call for help, but as she pressed the buttons, her breath was snagged by the frozen dread. What if she was already too late? But even as she tried to escape, the world outside seemed to darken further, and the closet door creaked open, revealing yet another figure just beyond the edge of the light. Who would be next? Delilah's heart hammered in her chest as she pulled her children tightly against her. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor, a sound swallowed by the heavy silence of the night. The figure in the closet stepped forward, its face obscured, but the malice was undeniable. "Mia, Ethan, stay close to me," Delilah hissed, her voice trembling but urgent. She edged backward, backing into the living room while her mind raced, frantically searching for a way out. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of Mr. Jenkins still standing at the window, his smile unwavering, as if he were savoring the moment. "Mommy, is he coming to play with us?" Mia asked, innocent and frightened. Her words filled Delilah with dread. No child should ever refer to someone like that. "No, sweetie," He not, Delilah said, forcing herself to keep her voice steady. We need to leave. Now. The figures in the shadows didn't move. They merely lingered, watching, waiting. The dark shape in the closet stepped closer into the moonlight, revealing a ghastly face etched with empty eyes and a smile that matched Mr. Jenkins. Cold terror slithered down Delilah's spine. Mom. Ethan's voice cracked, the fear in it almost palpable. What do we do? Just hold my hand, don't look away, she instructed, trying to push down her own rising panic. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to grab her children and burst out of the house, but the looming darkness seemed to pull her back, a malevolent force keeping them trapped. Mommy! Mia cried suddenly, pointing toward the window. The light's gone. Delilah swung her head around to see that the streetlights had flickered and died, leaving the world outside doused in an ominous darkness. The creeping shadows grew thicker, thicker than she'd ever felt before, as if they were tangible, almost alive. Her heart raced, each beat pulling her closer to despair. Stay together. Delilah shouted again, feeling the walls close in around her. Desperately she scanned for an exit. The door behind her was a portal to the outside, but something told her that stepping over the threshold would change everything, and then, it happened. The silhouettes shifted, merging and pressing forward as an unholy whisper echoed through the room. Come play with us, the words wrapped around her like a serpent, tightening their grip. Delilah felt dizzy, as if the air had thickened to a heavy sludge. She reached for the kids, clasping their small hands tightly in hers. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the kitchen, something breaking, something alive. The brash sound of shattered glass pulled them from their trance. They turned toward the direction of the noise, their little faces pale and wide with fear, yet curiosity gnawed at them too. Mom, the kitchen. Ethan whimpered. Stay behind me. Delilah instructed, her voice firm. Slowly, she backed towards the kitchen door, the shadows now crawling closer. They stumbled over piles of toys scattered around the floor, desperate to keep silence while the figures outside continued their whispers. Delilah's pulse quickened as she neared the kitchen, where the light was dim but flickering. Please let there be something, anything, she breathed out, praying for a weapon, a tool, something to protect her children. The tension was unbearable, every breath felt like an offering to the darkness. As she swung the door open, another figure loomed in the kitchen, a tall dark silhouette, eyes leaking black, dripping onto the floor. Time froze. The whispering breath of the shadows froze in place, watching. Delilah's stomach dropped as she realized she no longer felt the warmth of Mia and Ethan's hands. She whipped around to find them missing. No. Where are you? A guttural laugh echoed from behind, mixing with the childlike giggles that resonated in the darkness. Mommy, we're playing. Come find us. Panic surged through her. What game were they playing? What had they awakened? Desperation spurred her into action as she lunged for darkness, chasing echoes, chasing her children. But the more she moved, the more they played. Where would it all end? In an instant, the lights blinked again. This time, they didn't come back on. Delilah stumbled, finding herself enveloped in a chilling void. Mia. Ethan. The sounds of laughter filled her ears, swirling into chaos, and for a breathless moment, she understood, the game had just begun. What else lay hidden in the shadows? Delilah's breath quickened as she plunged deeper into the shadows, her heart a relentless drum echoing in the stillness. Mia. Ethan. Her voice cracked as the laughter grew louder, filling her head with a fierce, unnerving harmony. The sounds twisted through her, almost mocking her attempts to find her children. The darkness pressed against her, thick and suffocating, as she stumbled through the maze of her own home. Each step felt like a descent into a pit of despair, the air heavy with dread. This can't be real, she gasped, trying to convince herself that it was all a nightmare, but the chilling reality anchored her in place. Sudden movement caught her eye. A shape flitted past, tauntingly small and quick. Mommy, come play. A voice rang out, a perfect imitation of Mia. It bubbled with innocence yet dripped with something far more sinister. Stop it. Delilah shouted, angry and terrified. Where are you? Desperation clawed at her throat as she darted in the direction of the voice. Mia. Ethan. Answer me. The laughter morphed into a cacophony, echoing off the walls until every surface seemed to vibrate with its mocking sound. Delilah could barely tell where it was coming from. The kitchen. The hall. Behind her, in every corner, it danced, teasing her, enveloping her with dread. Leave my children alone. She screamed into the void, as fury ignited inside her, pushing back the cold grasp of terror. But the only response was a breathless chorus of giggles that consumed her, swirling around as if the walls themselves were alive with darkness. Gritting her teeth, she pressed forward, every instinct urging her to turn back, to flee from this sinister game. But she couldn't. Not without Mia and Ethan. The kitchen loomed ahead. Unpleasant memories surged into her mind, echoes of laughter blended with the heavy scent of fear. Past the threshold, eerily illuminated by the flickering overhead light, she could see the table set for a long-forgotten dinner. Cutlery that gleamed with unseen malice. Suddenly, a figure materialized in the shadows, tall, thin, grotesque. Mrs. Jenkins, her eyes void of humanity. Playing is so much more fun with friends, the woman hissed, leaning closer, her face stretching into an impossible smile. Join us. Get away from me. A fierce determination bubbled within her, and Delilah swung the nearest object, a chair, at the sinister figure. The chair shattered against the wall, reverberating through the cold kitchen, the echoes breaking the spell. But Mrs. Jenkins didn't flinch. Her laughter melded with the children's, reverberating inside Delilah's skull. You can't keep them, she whispered, her voice slithering into the void. They are ours now. Delilah's resolve teetered as she scanned the room, desperate. The air grew colder, wrapping around her limbs like icy chains. She needed to find a way to reach her children before they were lost forever. Ethan. Mia. She cried again, each shout turning into a strangled whisper. The darkness responded, swallowing her screams. Then, a faint glimmer caught her eye from the corner of the kitchen, a small, dancing light. Delilah surged towards it, hope rekindling for just a moment, but as she reached, it flickered and disappeared. What if it is too late? The thought crept in, a demon slithering through her mind. What if they've forgotten me? A bone-chilling laughter erupted around her, and in that moment, she felt the deep, dark truth that twisted her gut. Playing is the only way to survive. The laughter echoed louder now, swirling around her tighter, punishingly close. She could almost reach out and touch at whatever was holding her children hostage in this hellish game. But what would she have to face next? With dread pooling in her stomach, the realization struck like a lightning bolt. There was more to this game than she understood, a trap she couldn't unravel alone. Fingertips grazed the darkness, and then silence. Mia's high-pitched giggle floated back through the dark void. Mommy. We're having so much fun. Delilah's heart stopped. She shot forward, eyes wild. Where are you? The shadows danced, the figures tauntingly close. Somewhere amid the chaos, pieces of a larger puzzle began to click into place, pieces she didn't yet understand. Desperation clawed at her as she realized she had to find them before it was too late. The game had many rules, and the stakes were deadly. What unseen horrors waited just outside her view? What would it take to break the illusion and reclaim her family, and would she lose herself in the darkness before she could? The shadows writhed around Delilah, a slithering menace whispering her name. Panic rose like bile in her throat as she hesitated for a breath. The twisted echoes of her children's laughter wrapped around her mind, cauterizing her thoughts with fear. Mia. Ethan. She called, desperation threading through her voice, but it splintered in the void. She pressed forward into the claustrophobic darkness of the kitchen, feeling the weight of unseen eyes tracking her every move. This isn't real. This isn't real, she chanted to herself, searching for the logic that had deserted her. Then, a soft thump broke the silence, a sound flickering from beneath the table. It wasn't laughter this time, but a low, muffled giggle followed by a shushing sound as if to quiet the chaos around them. Mommy. We're hiding. No. Delilah shouted, the defiance echoing through the cold air. You have to come to me. Silence cloaked the kitchen again except for the shudder of her breath. There was a hint of movement behind the tablecloth, a wisp of white barely visible under the heavy fabric. Her heart thundered faster as she crouched beside the table, her fingers trembling. Ethan? Mia? With a deep breath, she mustered her courage and flung the tablecloth aside, revealing nothing but an empty space. The small light she thought she had seen shimmered briefly again on the counter, flickering like a ghostly flame. Was it a way out or another trap? What if they were taunting her? Delilah's pulse quickened. A sharp pang of dread hit her as she recalled Mrs. Jenkins' twisted grin. In that instant, a memory flared, another whispered warning from the town, a cautionary tale about forgotten children who never returned. As she spun to the door, it slammed shut with a resounding thud, rattling her bones. Let me out. Please. A burst of hysteria grasped her, and she pounded on the door, a futile act against a malevolent force. The room grew colder, a chill wrapping around her spine as shadows deepened. Panicked thoughts swirled, and she focused on the glimmer again, a flicker of hope mixed with temptation. Mia. She called one last time, eyes wide with urgency. The laughter returned, high-pitched and chaotic, mingling with faint whispers. Play with us, Mommy. The voices rose and fell, echoing around her, dancing in her mind. Delilah took a step back, shaking her head as she felt the air change. It was palpable, something thick and insidious creeping in. She pressed against the door, willing it to yield, fear clawing at her gut. What game are you playing? Steely resolve surged within her as she refused to submit. I'll find you. She screamed into the darkness, trying to drown out their taunts. You will not take them. But the walls laughed, the granite surface vibrating with a twisted rhythm, mocking her fight. And then from the darkness came a sinister rustling, a collective murmur of voices rising as if the house itself was alive. Fun is no fun without you, Mommy. Delilah recoiled, understanding dawning like a coffin closing. She was not just fighting for her children, she was plunging deeper into whatever nightmare awaited her. Every ounce of courage was draining away, as the shadows seemed to stretch and reach for her. Undeterred, she squinted into the darkness, desperation overwhelming her. Whatever you are, you win. Just then, a surge of energy flashed, illuminating a corner of the kitchen. A door that had been sealed tight appeared, an expanse of shimmering light beckoning her amidst the gloom. But was it salvation or another trap? Her breath hitched in her throat, torn between fear and an overwhelming need to escape. She edged toward the glowing doorway, heart racing. I'm coming. She shouted, the resolve roaring back to life, but as she reached out, a hand from the shadows gripped her wrist, pulling her back. Join us, the voice hissed, sharp and intoxicating, filled with forbidden lure. The light pulsed, flickered, and then vanished. Would she dare to leap into the unfathomable depths ahead? Or would she succumb to the shadows, lost forever? Delilah gasped, her breath escaping her like a frantic whisper. The grip on her wrist tightened, cold and unyielding. Panic surged as she looked into the shadows, seeking the source of that dreadful voice. What taunted her was nothing more than a twisted form lurking just beyond her vision, an outline too skeletal to be human, yet too familiar to be completely foreign. Let go. She cried, twisting her body, desperate to free herself from its feral grasp. But the shadow seemed to amalgamate, melding into her skin, and she felt its icy presence seep into her very being. Mommy, the voice cooed, a sickly sweetness layered with sinister intent. Why leave us? We only want to play. Stop. She shouted, shaking her wrist violently, but the spirit exhaled a chilling laugh that reverberated around the kitchen, sending shards of unease crawling up her spine. She could feel invisible fingers brushing against her face, not irritating, but threatening, an insidious promise wrapped in mockery. The world around her warped, the kitchen morphing into a spiraling vortex of color and sound, where reality twisted and her children's voices danced like echoes. Mommy. Join us. They echoed, growing louder, pressing into her thoughts. The laughter rang, rising like a taut string about to snap, Filled with a glee that turned her stomach, fighting against the shadows, Delilah yanked away, breaking free just as an unseen force lunged toward her. She stumbled backward, colliding with the fridge, its metal surface cold as death. A sharp pang of desperation coursed through her. Mia. Ethan. Where are you? Her voice trembled, cracking under the weight of her fear. A flicker of movement caught her eye. The shimmering doorway still lingered in the corner, pulsing gently as if aware of her torment. It's a trick, she rasped to herself. Don't you dare fall for it. But just like that, the whispers swelled with hope, weaving a tapestry of despair. We're safe in here, they chorused, the shadows churning hungrily around her. Delilah glanced back at the door, then to the twisted forms advancing steadily across the room. You'll not take me. She defied, gathering her remaining willpower. Embers of courage sparked in her heart. There was still a chance. With a deep breath, she lunged for the doorway, her feet pounding against the cold, hard floor. Adrenaline pumped through her veins, her heart a drum in her chest. As she neared the light, the laughter boomed, a cacophony desperately trying to pull her back, saturating her with dread. In an instant, the shimmering door flickered, radiating warmth and safety, an oasis in a storm of shadows. Mommy. The voices cried, their despair mingling with laughter, urging her closer. Her fingers curled toward the light, longing to breach its threshold. But as she reached out, barriers of darkness sprang up, surrounding her, threatening to suck her back into the suffocating void. No! She screamed, flailing against the darkness. The shadows lashed out, as if they could sense her faltering will. Shrill laughter echoed in her ears, growing louder, a malevolent chorus bearing down on her sanity. Join us, Mommy, another voice chimed, this time, clearer and chillingly familiar. It was Mia. Delilah's heart plummeted. She staggered back as another hand gripped her wrist, not the coldness of the shadows, but the warmth of her daughter's petite fingers. Help us. Mia begged, her voice thin and fragile. We're hiding from the dark, Mommy. Time seemed to expand as Delilah faced the blinding light and the dark figure pulling her away. I will save you. She screamed, grappling with despair. But her resolve wavered, the threshold between light and darkness blurring, twisting. As the shadows began to close around her, absorbing her cries, Delilah felt a clutch of icy fear squeezing her heart. Which will you choose? The voice whispered, an echo from the depths of nightmares. When she reached out, the last remnants of light pulsed one last time before it all faded. What horrors awaited her on the other side of the door? Had she traded her own freedom for her children's safety, or was she stepping into an even darker fate? The darkness enveloped her like a shroud, heavy and suffocating. Delilah blinked, struggling to adjust her eyes, but the inky blackness persisted, swallowing her whole. No warmth from the doorway remained, only the echoes of laughter hung in the air, like a malicious lullaby. Mommy? A voice broke through the silence, delicate and hollow, nudging her consciousness. It was Mia again, but the tone was different now, layered with despair and disconnection. Where are you? Each word trembled on her lips, cut short by the engulfing fear surrounding her. Delilah took a cautious step forward, the floor beneath her cracked and uneven, sending splinters of dread through her feet. She felt as if she was walking through a graveyard of memories, each step reverberating with an ominous energy. Please don't leave us, the voice of Ethan joined Mia's, merging into a haunting symphony of sorrow. The sounds floated around her, disembodied and disorienting. We're right here. We're waiting for you. Delilah's heart raced. Each echo was like a lure, pulling her deeper into the abyss. Stay away. I'm coming. She shouted, but her voice was swallowed up by an unseen void, leaving her feeling even more isolated. In an instant, a flicker of ghostly light momentarily pierced the darkness, illuminating the faces of her children. At least, she hoped they were her children. Their expressions were vacant, eyes hollowed pits that absorbed rather than reflected light. Join us, Mommy, they urged again, but this time the familiarity twisted into something more grotesque, their features shifting as if they were haunted marionettes. Delilah closed her eyes, fighting the urge to scream. She could feel the cold tendrils of despair creeping up her legs, freezing her in place. This isn't real, she muttered. It can't be. She clung to that thought like a lifeline. With a sharp intake of breath, she forced her eyes open and pushed ahead, summoning an inner strength that felt scarce. The darkness pulsated around her, guiding her movements toward a flickering outline in the distance. Was it another doorway? A promise of escape? "Mommy, help us." The voices surged, frantic now, weaving through her mind, threading terror into her resolve. "No. I want to let you," the words cried out as she sprinted toward the glimmer, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum signaling the end. The darkness fought back, the shadows clawing at her ankles, pulling her down with icy fingers, but she twisted, peeled herself away from their grasp, and with a final burst of desperation surged forward. The light was blinding now, but it whispered sweetly like honey. "You're here, you found us," it beckoned, wrapping around her like a cocoon of warmth. Just as Delilah reached out, it vanished, swallowed by the darkness. The screeching laughter returned, loud and menacing. Shadows twisted around her as the space warped and undulated. "Mommy! Don't leave us!" The cries morphed into anguished shrieks. The dynamic switches of voices came with a frightening frequency, stretching her already frayed nerves to the breaking point. "Join us, Mommy." The emphasis was heavier, more insistent. Fear clenched her heart. "No." The word tore through her like glass. "I want to abandon you." Yet, as she stood frozen, a new sound sliced through the agony, the faint, rhythmic ticking of a clock. It was an anomaly in the chaos. The clock echoed the pulse of time, steady and relentless, a reminder of the world she'd left behind. "Mommy, they're coming." Mia's voice trembled with a chilling truth, awakening a new dread in her heart. "Who's coming?" Delilah gasped, her breath coming in sharp spurts. The shadows pulsed in anticipation, a tide waiting to rush at her feet, urging her toward an inevitable reveal. Before she could comprehend the dread infusing her senses, shadows took form, elongated and stretched, their outlines morphing into something grotesque. What awaited her in the heart of this darkness? Would the truth of their torment unravel, or would it engulf her completely? The air thickened, and a chill swept through the blackness. Delilah's breath quickened. The shadows twisted into grotesque outlines, clawing at the edges of her sanity. She felt a presence, something ancient and sinister. The clock ticked louder, each pulse echoing like a warning bell. Time was running short. Then she saw them. Figures emerging from the shroud of darkness. At first, they were indistinct, but as they drew closer, Delilah's stomach twisted. They were indeed human shapes, but their skin glistened with a slick sheen, a haunting reminder of decay. Their faces contorted, each one wearing a mask of despair, a twisted echo of the children she loved. "Mia, Ethan," the words fell from her lips, desperate and weak. They were wrong. Something was fundamentally wrong with them. "Mommy!" they wailed, yet the voices strained with something unnatural. "Why do you fight? We can be whole again together." Delilah recoiled. They weren't her children anymore, they were shells, vessels of a darkness she had scarcely begun to comprehend. She could feel every heartbeat vibrating in her chest, each pulse panic-driven. "What do you want from me?" The question burned on her tongue, punctuated by the dreadful ticking that filled her ears like static. As she grasped for an answer, an image flickered in her mind, a birthday cake, candles flickering as her kids blew them out, laughter echoing against the kitchen walls. When had that last felt real? "Your love, Mommy," one of the shadows cried, stretching an elongated hand toward her. "Your love will set us free. Let them go," she shouted, the inhibition crumbling within her. "You're not them. You're twisted, vile imposters." A voice rang out, echoing sinisterly from all around, a deep rumble that sent shivers spiraling down her spine. One of the figures stepped closer, the light from some unseen source illuminating their features a fraction. Its face was a mockery of familiarity, wearing her child's features yet so deranged that Delilah instinctively recoiled. The creature grinned, revealing jagged teeth, dripping with a visceral darkness. "We are their truth, their desires. To embrace us is to embrace them, wholly. But you want to keep them away. Why, Mommy?" You're keeping them from the sweetest pain. Delilah shook her head, feeling the darkness gnaw at her spirit. The tendrils wrapped tighter, wrapping around her waist like an iron vice. I want to let you have them. Then you choose your fate, it hissed, and the shadows surged forward, pushing her back against the oppressive wall of darkness. The clock ticked violently, a countdown echoing in her mind. With a primal roar, she pushed through the fear. No! She bellowed as she tore her gaze from them, focusing on the void behind. You can't have me. You can't take them. With a surge of will, she forced her feet to move, rushing backward into the deeper corners of the darkness. The shadows clawed at her, shrieking in rage as they got closer, their laughter morphing into horrid cries, blending together in a cacophony of despair. Suddenly, she stumbled over something solid, a doorframe. The existence of it felt like a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. She pressed against it, desperate, her heart racing against time and terror. Please let me out. The space convulsed, shadows closing in fast, and just when her fingers brushed against the wood, the door creaked open slightly, revealing an otherworldly glow peeking through the narrow crack. The shadows shrieked in fury, their voices mingling into a frenzied crescendo. You can't escape. They belong to us. With one final breath, Delilah flung herself forward, barreling through the door and hoping against hope that she was not too late. What lay beyond that threshold, and was it truly an escape, or merely a different kind of darkness waiting to engulf her? Delilah stumbled into a blinding brightness that shattered the darkness like glass. She fell to her knees, gasping for breath, her heart still racing as it battled against the throbbing silence that surrounded her. The air felt different here, less suffocating, yet strangely heavy, as if it bore witness to unspoken fears. She blinked against the light, her surroundings slowly coming into focus. She found herself in a long, narrow hallway, lined with doors. Each one was battered and old, painted in peeling pastels that whispered of forgotten times. A chill ran down her spine as she stood up, the echoes of her own footsteps ringing in a hollow rhythm. Where am I? She wondered aloud, her voice wavering in the emptiness. The door behind her creaked before swinging shut with a finality that raised the hair on the back of her neck. The hall stretched infinitely in both directions. She took a hesitant step forward, feeling the eyes of the shadows still lingering behind her. Whispers floated through the air, taunting and beckoning, sliding under her skin. Come find us. Delilah pressed onward, the unsettling sensation of being watched clawing at her. She glanced at the first door she passed, a door with a rusted handle. It was slightly ajar, and a burst of freezing air wafted out. She didn't want to know what was inside. Memories surged, ghosts from her past creeping closer, gnawing on her sanity. Mia, Ethan, she whispered, wishing fervently to see them, wishing she could reclaim the laughter that once filled her home. But as she moved, a pulse of energy vibrated through the walls, pulling her in, compelling her to open the nearest door. Just a quick look, she reasoned, though a voice inside her warned with each tentative step. Still, she couldn't ignore the ache of maternal instinct. What if they were trapped on the other side? What if they needed her? Before she could lose her resolve, she gripped the handle and swung the door wide open. Inside was a cluttered room. Flickering light from a single bulb swung like a pendulum, illuminating dusty toys abandoned in corners. The walls were plastered with faded drawings made by small hands, and the air stirred with memories that twisted her stomach in knots. Mia? Ethan? She called, stepping inside. But her voice was swallowed by the echoes, and all that responded was silence, followed by a grating laughter sharp and cold that seemed to emanate from the very walls. In a flash, the room changed. The toys began to move, rolling and bouncing toward her, their painted eyes suddenly glaring with malice. The laughter twisted into screams as the toys transformed, becoming grotesque caricatures of her children, twisted and torn into monstrosities that were impossibly wrong. Delilah backed away, her heart hammering in her chest. Get away from me! She shouted, but their laughter filled her ears, growing sharper, more relentless. The light flickered again, plunging the room into shadow for a heartbeat before illuminating a shadowy figure standing behind her, the familiar outlines of her twisted children. No, she breathed, the primal instinct to flee overwhelmed by despair. It reached out a hand that looked like Ethan's, but the gaze was empty, a void that threatened to consume her. Mommy, why won't you save us? The voice pulled at her, echoing with pain. Delilah's chest tightened. She could feel the walls closing in. She turned to escape, hands desperately searching for the door, but the sound of laughter echoed behind her, echoing through her bones. "This is your fault," they shrieked, a cacophony of accusations tearing through the air. "You left us. You didn't listen." As she bolted down the hallway, doors slammed shut around her, trapping her further into a net of despair. Desperation fueled her, and she glanced back one last time. Was this really the end? Was there no escape? In that moment, a door on her right swung open wide, revealing a swirling dark mist spilling out like a river. She hesitated, torn between the pursuit of her dark past and the potential promise of the unknown. Did she dare step into the very thing that could either save her or pull her into a deeper abyss? With dread pooling in her gut, she darted toward it, ready to confront whatever waited inside. But would she emerge whole, or become merely another soulless echo of the darkness? Delilah hesitated at the threshold of the swirling darkness, her heart pounding as a symphony of whispers churned in the air. "Mia! Ethan!" she shouted, the desperation in her voice echoing back at her. The shadows around her faded, consumed by the thick, swirling mist, and she knew in that gut-wrenching moment that this was not just about herself, but about saving her children from the insidious grasp of despair. "Join us, Mommy," the voices twisted, a mockery taunting her as she stepped forward. The mist clawed at her skin, chilling her to the bone, but a flicker of warmth ignited deep inside her chest. It grounded her, anchoring her while the darkness wriggled like a live thing, seeking every crack in her resolve. "No!" she roared, forcing her way through the haze, determination stoking the fire of her courage. She recalled their laughter, the warmth of their hugs, and the love that bound them together. In the thick of despair, it emerged like a beacon, guiding her through the gloom. "I will find you. I promise." Suddenly, the mist parted, revealing a space beyond her wildest imagination. It was a world caught between familiarity and dreams, a place where memories and fears collided in a kaleidoscope of chaotic emotions. She stepped through the mist, her shoulders squared with defiance as she entered the new realm. The laughter of her children echoed around her, now mixed with dissonant tones that threatened to distort her memories. "Mia! Ethan!" she cried again, the sound reverberating within her. Her breath came in sharp bursts, anxiety coiling tighter by the second, and every fiber of her being urged her to keep moving. "Mommy! Play with us!" A giggle punctuated the darkness, an innocent reminder of her children's voices, yet there was something else. A shadow flickered in the corner of her eye, a movement too swift, too unpredictable. She turned, apprehension thrumming through her as she caught a glimpse of them peeking from behind a wall shrouded in fog. "Mia!" Delilah lunged toward their silhouettes, but they melted into the shadows, the darkness clinging to them like a beloved blanket. "Where are you? Help us, Mommy," they chorused, their words dripping with something sinister yet laced with desperation. Each sound tugged at her heartstrings, pulling her deeper into the binding grasp of the unseen figures that twisted behind them. "No!" she barked, squaring her shoulders again. "I'm not afraid of you." Determination surged within her. She picked herself up and steadied her breath. "I choose my family." The mists around her began to swirl violently, shadows stretching like twisted fingers to grasp at her. Voices bellowed, a cacophony of despair scratching at her mind, echoing with fury and malice. "You cannot stop the game." But Delilah, fueled by maternal strength, advanced against the cacophony, shining light into the murkiness. "This is not a game," she shouted, the force of her voice reverberating deep in her chest. With that declaration, the realm around her began to shudder, and the shadows shrieked in retaliation. The laughter faltered, and for a moment, a sliver of silence enveloped her, breathless. In that charged moment, Delilah felt warmth burst within her soul, a flicker of hope, a reminder of everything she was fighting for. "Mia, Ethan, hold on. I'm coming." Summoning all the strength she possessed, she tore through the shadows, pushing forward one step, then another, heart racing with determination against the chorus of despair. As the darkness swirled tighter, she felt the space closing in. But an ethereal glow emerged ahead, soft and inviting, flickering gently like the warmth of a fading sunset. It whispered promises of a reunion she yearned for more than anything. "Mommy." Mia's voice broke through, sharp and terrified, pulling her back to the present. "Help us." Delilah threw herself forward, her heart hammering, the light pulling at her like a lifeline. She charged through the dense fog, arms extended, tears streaming down her cheeks, and crashed through what felt like a binding barrier between fear and hope. Time stretched painfully, and then, she burst through it, a bright light exploding around her. "Mommy." Delilah felt their hands slip tightly into hers, warm and real, filling the hollow void with love and warmth. It was them. They were there, eyes wide with concern and relief. "Mommy, we were scared," Mia cried, wrapping her small arms around Delilah's waist. Ethan pressed against her side, his little body shaking with the intensity of their shared ordeal. "A curse shall break," came a voice from the shadowy depths behind them. "But darkness takes what it can. Choose wisely." The warning whirled around them, but Delilah only squeezed her children tightly. "Ah! Let us go," she shouted, her heart racing from the rush of warm emotions and fear now mixed within the light. Hand in hand, they started to run, the shadows of darkness finally dissipating. Breathing a sigh of relief, Delilah led them back through the thicket of memories, each one brightening like blossoms blooming in spring. The chaotic laughter dimmed, becoming echoes of fear fading gently into the night. They burst into the world outside, where dawn was breaking, a resurrection from despair into the beautiful reality of a new day. It was no longer shrouded by the sinister grip of the night. Maplewood was quiet, returning to its suburban calm. Delilah knelt, pulling Mia and Ethan into her arms, feeling the sun's warmth break through the fog. "I will always come for you," she promised. They were safe now, together in the sunlight. With one last glance back, she allowed tears to fall freely. It had been a battle against darkness, and she emerged victorious, reclaiming not only her children, but a piece of herself, too. As they walked home together, the power of love and courage coursing through them, she could finally breathe. Maplewood was no longer haunted, the whispering secrets of the night dissipating like a morning mist. Now, as we close this chapter, let us not forget the journey we've shared. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are locked away just for you. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm and keep these tales alive. Your voice matters. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this spine-chilling ending. And please, don't wait even 1 second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us stand together against the shadows, friends.